imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Town of Adams Board of Selectmen is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public has been permitted. However, every effort has been made to ensure that the public can adequately access our proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to view this meeting while in progress may do so by tuning into channel 1303. Thank you to Northern Berkshire Community Television. Or they can do so by calling the phone number that was posted on the agenda on the town's website. Despite our best efforts, if we were unable to provide for real-time access, a recording of this meeting will be posted on nbctc.org and on the town's website as soon as we are able to post that. I do need to let everybody know that this meeting is being recorded by Northern Berkshire Community Television, but also being recorded using Zoom. For those of you who are attending via Zoom, in the room with me, I am Chair of the Board, Christine Hoyt. I have with me Vice Chair Rick Blanchard, members John Duvall and Joe Novak. So there is the full board in attendance, and no roll call votes will be necessary this evening. Also in the room is the Town Administrator, Jay Green, Town Council, Ed St. John III, Administrative Assistant, Deb Dunlap. We also have Police Chief Troy Bacon and DPW Director Robert Tobert and Peter Gentile from Northern Berkshire Community Television to round us all out. All of you who are on Zoom, my laptop is being projected onto the wall so everyone can see all of you and see who is speaking, and your names are all listed as well. I think that takes care of the logistics and the hospitality. So without further ado, I will ask for everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. As with all the other meetings, if members of the board see that somebody's trying to call in and I haven't left them in the room, if you could please bring it to my attention, I'd appreciate it. All right, that brings us to the first item of business on the agenda, which is the approval of minutes. Before us, we have the minutes for the October 19th and October 21st meeting. It is my understanding that all members of the board can vote on the minutes.
We're in. We can't talk until they invite us in.
So I think I know that voice. Is that Don?
Yes.
Okay. Don, I'm going to ask you to mute your phone if you can.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
How the hell do you mute the phone?
Person.
Oh, here it is.
That's okay. Okay. What's the board's pleasure with regard to the minutes?
I make a motion, we waive a reading of the minutes and provide, approve them as provided for October 19th and October 21st.
Okay, I have a motion by Rick. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by John. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? That is unanimous. That brings us to public comment. So I have a number of people on the call this evening. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to the board about a matter? If so, I just ask that you unmute yourself, since you all kindly muted yourselves.
Do you want us to acknowledge?
What's that?
Do you want us to just unmute or acknowledge ourselves?
If you would like to speak under public comment, you can go ahead and state your name.
I guess as a point of order, are we an agenda item or a public comment item?
Sorry about that. So I think that you're calling in to talk about the winter overnight parking ban. Is that correct? So that is the second item under new business.
All right, so I'll mute up. Sorry.
You'll hold off on comment until then? Okay. And I think Jade is here to talk about, the first item under new business. So, and I think April as well. Is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak to the board about anything under public comment? Okay. Hearing none, we'll just move on to, old business. Under old business, you'll see that we have a resubmission of approval of transfer of an all-alcohol package store license from O'Leary's Package Store at 60 Commercial Street in Adams to Anna Lepore, Inc., doing business as O'Leary's Package Store, at 60 Commercial Street in Adams. I'm gonna turn things over to Town Council to just tell us a little bit about the, I guess, minor clerical error on the paperwork.
Right, so the ABCC rejected the last modified application of Anna Lepore on the basis that Priyanka and Patel was wrongly listed as a director on the application, but was not listed as a director in the articles of organization that was filed with the Secretary of State's office. So after an exchange of emails with the ABCC investigator and reviewing the updated application form, the term director has been removed, so that Priyanka and Patel no longer has that designation under his name. That was the reason for the disapproval of the application. So before you tonight is the application with the word director removed, and my recommendation is that the board approve the application with that in mind.
Questions for Town Council? The motion then would be to, approve the transfer of the all-alcohol package store license, or do we need to include any other language, or is it a?
Well, to approve the application for the transfer of the all-alcohol license as modified.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. I have a motion by Rick,
I'll second.
second by John. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? One abstention? That is unanimous. Thank you very much for that. Okay. So that brings us to new business. Under new business, we had a request from Lever to talk about the Mohawk Trail Entrepreneur Challenge that they have put forward, which is in partnership with the Mohawk Trail Regional Partnership. And as the board knows, Member Novak is on that, on the Mohawk Trail Regional Partnership. And I had asked if Joe wanted to speak about it, but I know that I believe Jade, is it Schnauber?
Yeah, Schnauber.
Schnauber, okay, is also here to just talk to the board about this, but I can turn to you, Joe.
Okay, I'll lay some of the groundwork pertaining to this. First of all, for people that are listening, the Mohawk Trail Woodlands Partnership is a partnership of communities that are in western Franklin and northern Berkshire counties. There were 21 towns that were eligible to join a partnership. 16 have joined. Thus, we had enough people to make our mission possible. First of all, I'd like to read the mission statement for Mohawk Trail Woodlands Partnership, because that will help tie all this together. First, the mission statement is support rural economic development and forest conservation to preserve the quality of life in western Franklin and northern Berkshire counties. And we put together 3 goals. Goal number 1 was to conserve forest land and private ownership to protect the region's rural character and enhance the role forests play in providing clean water and air, flood control, carbon sequestration, and habitat protection. The second goal, which falls in the parameters which we'll be speaking to tonight, is increase economic development by nurturing natural resources, outdoor recreation, and tourism-based businesses, and expanding employment. And the third goal of the Mohawk Trail Woodlands Partnership was to provide funding to participating towns for municipal services related to outdoor recreation and tourism. So as our board met, Jeffrey Thomas, who leads up the Lever Enterprise, which is a small incubator business which helps launch people interested in starting up a business. And Jeffrey thought that it was a good opportunity for their group to step in and to offer $25,000 in funding to start a business that was related to the goals set forth in the mission statement of the Mohawk Trail Woodlands Partnership. And I passed out, once again to all the members, the board, a packet that was launched by Lever to better understand what was going on. So I'm going to just read what Lever writes, and they say, we seek entrepreneurs who wish to build regional businesses that will, in bold print, create jobs in the Mohawk Trail region. Examples of qualifying businesses include woodland-related tourism, woodcraft, and woodland-derived natural products. Any entrepreneurial seeking to establish and grow a sustainable woodland-related business should apply to participate. The entrepreneurs or their businesses must be located in a Mohawk Trail Woodland Partnership member town. And I'll just quickly read the towns that are in the membership. It includes Adams, Ashfield, Charlemont, Cheshire, Clarksburg, Conway, Heath, Leiden, Monroe, New Ashford, North Adams, Rowe, Shelburne, Peru, Windsor, and Williamstown. And I think that since we have two individuals, one I know, they're April, that, how you doing, kiddo?
I'm so good. How are you?
Good, pretty good. Good to see you.
You too.
So I'm going to let them take over and let them tell what their side of the story is concerning this, and thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you, Joe. So I will.
Thank you.
Sure. Jade or April?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and present. You got most of it all covered though, so we'll jump into about halfway through. Basically, we wanted to come talk to you guys in hopes that you'll be able to help us identify entrepreneurs in your town who might like to participate and compete for the $25,000 grant to launch their business and create more jobs here. We're looking for entrepreneurs who are going to meet the three following criteria: that they'll create jobs in one or more of the 16 Mohawk Trail Woodland Partnership communities, that their business or idea will relate to a natural woodland resource, and we're looking for startups only or companies that are less than 2 years old or less than $500,000 in revenue. The challenge will be completely online and remote, and it will take place between January and March. And we're excited to help entrepreneurs in this region, especially with the woodland resource. If you guys have anybody in mind, you're welcome to send us their names or send us the information we provided you with tonight. And I'd also like to open any questions that anybody might have if they want to.
We have a few entrepreneurs on the call who might know some other entrepreneurs
Of course.
that are just trying to start up. Any questions?
Yes, just
Sure,
one.
sure, John.
Jade, how long will this money be available to the person or business that is chosen to move forward?
Well, it will be available.
$25,000, or will that come yearly for a time frame?
It'll just be one, $25,000, and basically they'll spend it. We'll reimburse them until they run out of said money.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Other questions from the board?
No questions. I think it's a great program. It's a great idea. And thank both the Mohawk Trail Region and Lever for pulling this together.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We will get this information out there, to those that we can become in contact. So I appreciate you sending this, to the town, for our consideration of putting this out there to our community.
Thank you for having
Great.
us.
Yes, thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.
And you're welcome to stay if you want, but we won't be offended if you sign out as well. Okay. That brings us to the second item under new business, winter overnight parking ban. And I will turn things over to Town Administrator Green.
Thank you. This is on the agenda. As the board knows, historically, the town has imposed a winter overnight parking ban townwide on all publicly owned streets and in parking lots from the 1st of November all the way through until sometime in April. Over the past several months, or at least the past 6 months, I would say, I've had the opportunity to speak with some folks, particularly some folks on Park Street, who inquired about the parking ban and if there was another way to implement that. And they had some good feedback. Myself and Chief Bacon met particularly with Mr. West and Mr. Bishop, whose office is located on Park Street, as well as owning other residential and commercial properties throughout the town. They had some good feedback. This board has the authority under the town bylaws to look at the parking issues, as well as make those regulations. So I felt perhaps that the timing was right to take a look at that, particularly because the snow was upon us. The DPW director, Mr. Tover, and Chief Bacon are here in order to provide some information to the board pursuant to the discussion as well. Deb has provided everybody, as I did yesterday via email, Chapter 121 of our bylaws, which have all of our parking regulations in there. So you have the subject matter in front of you, and we are familiar with how we do things now. I think it's best just to open it up to Corey and Peter, who have graciously joined us tonight, and take some feedback from them as the board wishes to discuss the matter.
All right, good evening. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and gentlemen of the board and the town administrator. I appreciate your time on this, and I'll be brief. You know, here we are at snow season again, and this issue comes up, and the issue relates to a housing issue almost as much as a quality of life issue that we can have. We've worked very, very hard in the town, particularly with the new health inspector, and we're trying to maintain a decent level of housing and improve the quality of housing. And as we know, our housing stock is typically built turn of the last century, and a lot of our housing stock that are apartments and rental properties today were actually built pre-automobile, or at least when there perhaps was one car to a family. Nowadays, things are different. And as a landlord and a property owner, I've come to realize that we run into some obstacles at times because we have the parking ban. You know, they're smaller lots. This is an old mill town. And what happens with the parking ban is we either have to turn away quality tenants that work, and I'll address that in a minute. And then it forces people to do things that almost go against regulation. You know, there's self-created curb cuts because people are looking to just be able to park everywhere they can. And that's an eyesore when you drive around town and you see cars parked all over a front lawn, such as that. And then the other problem it presents is that when there's nowhere to park and you're desperate to park so you don't get a ticket or get towed, is you end up looking for parking that ends up being private property, and that creates a hardship for the property owner. If I own a parking lot, for example, and there's some folks that are parking because they have nowhere else to park, the reason that the town has it is so they can plow. Well, it prevents a problem for me as a private property owner, because I can't plow my parking lot either because there are people that don't belong there. And worst scenario in that case is the liability that goes along with it. You know, I wouldn't have a problem with people parking in the parking lot if I could guarantee that I wouldn't get sued if they slip and fall because the parking lot hadn't been treated. For example, we have, Corey and I have 2 4-families that most everybody in the town is familiar with because we actually purchased them through the town in working with community development, and both properties were taken out of receivership. One of them is on Elm Street and one is on Weber Street. The Weber Street one, those are 2-bedroom units, so 8 bedrooms in that one building, and we barely have parking for 4 cars there. If we look at the demographic of the tenant today and the tenant that we've all talked about, you know, and you're all familiar with the General Dynamics study of what they're looking for. If I only have 1 spot per apartment, it's hard to get the dual income family, if you will, or husband, wife, 2 roommates, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. It's hard to get them because I only have parking for 1 car and I'm actually losing out. Adams and North Adams and Williamstown are the only towns in Berkshire County that have a flat parking ban. So I could go on and on and on. We all realize, fortunately, that this is not New York City or San Francisco, and most of the tenants have at least 1 car. You know, for example, at Elm Street property, 2 of those units are 3 bedrooms in there. And if you have families and you have kids in high school today, well, I know what it's like at my house with cars, and I know Corey knows what it's like at his house when you have teenagers that drive. In the old days, like I said, maybe 1 family had 1 car if they were lucky. Today, it seems that everybody has a license that has a car, and I'm asking the board's consideration to look at amending the rules. And I'd like to thank the police chief and town administrator for actually meeting with us and being open and reviewing it. And I think by the town administrator figuring out that it's something that the Board of Selectmen can pass, my suggestion would be that we make an amendment to the current parking situation and have a ban on overnight parking during a declared snow emergency. And other than that, my suggestion would be that we would allow overnight parking. Now, I will say in closing that I do know that, you know, it's not just a winter problem in some parts of town. You know, there are some streets in town that year round it's a problem. One of them that pops into my head right away is on French Street down towards Renfrew Field. That road is not wide enough for parking, but I get it that those are a couple mill buildings that there is no parking, there is no rear yard or access to it, so it has something to be done. But I think if we want to continue improving our housing stock and the quality of tenant that's moving to town, we need to address this because it's very difficult to create parking when it just doesn't exist. And I think one of the best solutions would be to afford parking on the street year round unless there's a declared snow emergency. So I thank the board for consideration.
But Peter, if I may, and I'm assuming you would probably agree with me, is that it also affects the property values and you know sales prices of these properties. If you look at a multifamily, single family, whatever family house here in town that has parking versus a house that has no parking, you'll see a substantial difference in the value of those properties. Just based on that, in the market, you know, the marketability of those homes and the time that it takes to sell those homes based on those factors is much longer if you look at the statistics on that. So, you know, having the ability to park on the street and have, you know, buildings that may lack in parking, you know, and just to go back to what Peter was saying on the Front Street property there, you know, that puts a burden on the town down at the Renfrew parking lot, because you can tell when, you know, there's parking issues, and like Peter said earlier, funneling into, you know, town property, private property, et cetera, because they just don't have that, or parking on their yards and places that normally you wouldn't be parking. But, you know, I've looked at it again as a property value thing. And I think that being able to have that extended parking on the streets will allow the multifamily, single families homes to have a little more value, and at the same time find a easier to rent to tenants that normally wouldn't look at those properties without parking.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Overview. I will turn things back over to town administrator and or police chief.
one of the, just to give the board a kind of a legal layout, and town council can certainly jump in should I misspeak, but in reviewing the relevant bylaws that control this under chapter 121-1, I'd call your attention to paragraph E under that section, which presently does permit that, or I should say prohibit, parking upon any street, highway, traveled way, or public parking lot during a storm emergency declared by the Director of Public Works, which impedes the flow of traffic, removal of water, snow, ice, debris, or other objects or emergency work. So the provision already does exist in the bylaws to allow what Mr. West and Mr. Bishop are proposing. That is, the restriction would go into place upon declaration of snow emergency. So that's already allowed in here. Historically, the town, from what my research says, has just expanded that to not just upon declaration of snow emergency, but simply between 2 calendar dates. So the board could continue that practice, or it could instruct myself and the police chief and the DPW director to implement paragraph E under section 121. However, there is a subsequent paragraph that you'll note that says 121-2, which states 2-hour parking during certain hours on all streets and parking lots controlled by the town. This states that no driver of any vehicle shall park such vehicle in any street or in any parking lot controlled by the town for a period of time longer than 2 hours between the hours of 12 a.m. and 7 a.m. of any day. So that actually restricts overnight parking year-round to only 2 hours. The police chief researched that for us. He can give you his and the department's point of view on that provision in terms of how often that's actually enforced or its necessity to be enforced. But that just gives you the landscape as to what the board can deliberate and decide if they so wish tonight.
Does the police chief want to comment on that?
Chief, why don't you just give us your point of view on the request and on that section?
Well, correct me if I misspeak. I'm a newcomer, so, still learning some of this, but just wanted to give you a kind of oversight of how, an overview, how this has been traditionally enforced in the past. So traditionally in the past, the overnight parking ban would go into effect November the 1st. The police department wouldn't issue any citations for that violation until about the 15th, up until, or in between November 1st and 15th. We would issue warnings to let people know that there is a ban in effect. And that would go to April 15th. Traditionally, the department has not enforced the parking ban until about 2 a.m. And then that traditionally would stop at 6 a.m. So there's just a very small window that actually does get enforced. And what they would write the violation of is the 121-2. 2-hour parking as the administrators. I did have an opportunity to discuss the emergency declaration parking ban briefly before I came over here, and it seemed to be pretty well received. One of the officers made a pretty good comment. He said he always kind of felt uneasy or maybe bad for the person when it's 60 degrees and it's March out, there's no snow in sight, and they're getting it today. Officer discretion obviously didn't come into play, but he did use that as an example. And I did have an opportunity to go home and get something to eat before the meeting, and I jumped on Google and did some searches. Different towns and cities across the Commonwealth do it different ways. Some are more complicated than what the administrator even talked about. The snow declaration is probably the easiest way to handle it, and there are just some communities that do that. There are more complicated ways where if an emergency is declared on an odd day, or a Tuesday, or Wednesday, or Friday, you park on the south or the north side of the street, or the east and the west, that gets confusing, and I don't think that would, I definitely wouldn't recommend that. But if you're looking to implement something that makes sense, the gentleman who spoke made perfect sense. I'm not sure what else I could say. I'm convinced by what they said, but I think that the snow declaration route would be the best way to handle this. I think it's fair and good communication between the town, DPW, police department, getting that out in advance. If that works the way I anticipated working, I think that it would be okay. like anything new, if it is agreed upon to start this new process, we as a department would obviously issue warnings and try to communicate and not punish people right away for not following the directions, for not giving the word, and really help them understand how they can get that message that it is a snow declaration. Are there any questions that you have that I can try to answer? That's in a nutshell how the department has traditionally in the past handled the parking.
My only concern with going with the declaration of emergency or whatever is notification.
Yep.
I mean, weather and everything are not perfect, so when you go to bed, there may be nothing in the forecast for snow, and then at 2 a.m. it starts snowing like crazy. So how is somebody gonna know that, okay, now there's been the declaration, you can't park out here?
You know, I'm going to speak from personal experience. Very rarely have I ever woken up in the morning and saw snow or rain, and when I did see the forecast. I would anticipate probably DPW monitoring weather, and if an event is likely to happen, then people would be warned. Better safe than sorry. And then that would be pushed out to different social media, website, and as alert system that we have to try to reach as many people as possible to alert them that, hey, there's an event coming, plan for it on this day to this day, don't park on the street. But I do get what you're saying. There's always a possibility of something popping up that you don't expect. But I guess science has gotten pretty good over the years, and they're pretty accurate at giving you the possibility of something happening. There's always that percentage that weather and operate on. I would love to have a bit of operating on that.
Generally speaking, Rick, just to give you some background on how we work internally, is we have found that just by natural, organic communication, when a storm is predicted coming up, Tim Coda, our operations supervisor, will usually call or will stop in and we'll have a conversation about DPW mobilization. Will it be a split crew? Because, of course, storms never really seem to occur between the hours of 7 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. They could happen at any time. So there's always generally a conversation, and with the DPW director now on board, at a minimum, we're having a conversation as to how we're prepared with our snow forces to deal with it. I would anticipate that the operations supervisor will be ordered to monitor the storms, which we know he does now. And when we feel it's a large enough storm that would warrant the emergency, he will indicate that. We can have a template, a press release template, ready to go. Deb can issue that through normal channels. We can instantaneously put that on our social media accounts. We can, the town clerk's office is immediately responsive with anything that we need to be posted on the webpage. And then, you know, we have been very conservative in our use of reverse 911, and we do that because we don't want to dilute that mechanism to communicate. If you're at home and you receive a reverse 911 call, it's going to be for an imminent notification of something that pertains to public safety. And we can certainly use the reverse 911 system, you know, for that. And that's nothing more than up to the police department, myself, Mr. Tober can do it, communicating with the sheriff's department to initiate the reverse 911 call. So that's how I would see us being able to do it. As well. There's also a lot of communication that happens between the police department and DPW in terms of road conditions, et cetera. So I think the infrastructure is in place for us to do it. Frankly, it's a burden on us, on the staff, to monitor it and be prepared to do it. But if that's what the board feels is right for our community and for the constituency based on the feedback, you know, we're prepared to do it. I don't think it's a heavy lift. It's our job. It's our responsibility. That's my take on it. Mr. Tober can certainly speak to the DPW's perspective. I think the DPW's perspective is just that by the time they get out there and start plowing, they need the roadways open so they can do that. After heavy storms, as we had last year, I think we had about 2 heavy storms. You know, some of the more congested areas that we have, Summer Street in particular, and Park Street, we issue a snow emergency, no parking order anyway. for certain hours with at least a day's notice, so we can get the bucket loader and the dump truck in there to remove the piled up snow. So most of these practices are, you know, we're doing them already. That's really the only distinction at this point. And I think in speaking with Mr. West and Mr. Bishop, I think it's that exact predicament that we're going to have according to the meteorologists coming up this weekend, which is we have very beautiful weather, but yet we're in the middle of a winter parking ban. So it's 65 degrees outside, but no parking on the street. So that's the one really factor for me. You know, we're aware of the character of our community has changed such where you can't work anymore right next to where you live in the mill housing. So we appreciate the feedback, and we're prepared to, staff is prepared to implement whatever the board would like us to do.
As a follow-up question to Member Blanchard's question about communication, I realize the question that I'm going to ask is probably a little unfair to the two individuals who are with us this evening, but we do have a member of community television, we have a member of iBursters who is with us. Are there mechanisms in place that if we were to declare an emergency, that you would be able to put this information out, either on community television? I see Peter is nodding his head. Yes?
Yeah, as long as, it would be tricky if it was a Sunday, but, you know, as long as there was staff at ABCTC, yeah, I think that would be right.
And we could find out the exact way to get that so that it's up almost immediately. And so, Jack, my question is the same question to you. I know you're one member of the iBursters team, but is it possible to get a notification of an emergency up on iBursters relatively quickly if we needed to?
Yeah, it's easier during the day, but we can put press releases up pretty easily.
Okay, thank you.
So to add to that discussion, I believe you need to have a time that the decision needs to be made. For example, that if a snow emergency is going to be declared, it must be declared by 5 o'clock. Then like you have indicated, town administrator, that a requirement also should be that the reverse 911 call system is used in regards to a snow emergency. And the decision to have a snow emergency, we already have a process that does that. So we've had these snow emergencies, we've made those declarations, it's on the Facebook, but I think to inform all residents, you have to have a certain time of the day that by this time, you're going to make a decision, the police chief, the DPW director, and yourself make the decision that to declare a snow emergency with our emergency management person. And then the communication begins. So I think we're positioned to do this. It's just, as Rick has started the discussion in regards to communication is the key, to let everyone know that the snow emergency has been declared. And again, we've already done this several times. So it's just how do we enhance the communication and at a certain time of the day. So if it's, if it's after 5, then, if you start getting to 7, 8 o'clock at night, and then all of a sudden you got to make a decision to where you're going to park your vehicles, it's kind of late at that time, I would just suggest that we have a time limit, this is the time that, the latest we can do it. And we use the notifications we have for snow emergencies, and I'm not sure if we use the reverse 911. Do we for snow emergencies when we declare them?
I don't think we used it last year.
Okay, but I think we need to, because everyone needs to know this within so many hours to be able to make, where are they going to park their vehicles? So just better communications. So I think we need to add a couple things, and I think this can happen. Now this decision is the decision of the board that it's really a precedent. It's been there as long as I can remember, but it's really just a decision by the board. We make it every year for this parking ban, and I agree with what's been said that you get into the March and April timeframe, you get beautiful days, and we have a winter ban still on. So I just want to, just one request to the chair is that we hear from the DPW director of the impacts on his organization. Thank you.
Robert, you want?
So my concern again is the communication. I think of all the times that we would, consider doing this, this is probably the best time to do it because of our technology now and our ability to communicate. That is key here. When a storm emergency is declared, we can get that out there quickly and people can hear that. We also have to be able to communicate when that ban is lifted, so they can now go back on the street, so we have to look at that too. I want to emphasize, the word here is used, a storm emergency, so it's not just snow. This could come in very handy during the summer. During the storm like what we had recently, we had a lot of trees come down, so this could actually benefit in that way, and the past we could use this during the summer also. Again, my concern is that communication. We cannot have cars out parked there, people don't get the communication, they didn't hear it. Now they may come back and say, well, I didn't know, something like that. That's not going to apply. So that's a potential problem. My concern again is cars off the street and clear, because that causes havoc when you're trying to clear the street, as well as sanding and salting stuff. It's not just removal of snow that we're concerned about. We're keep the street sanded and salted too. So there has to be a good response here. We can also consider a hybrid possibly where we have this snow declaration up until, say, December. At that point, you know you're going to be into winter. You're not going to run into these warm days like we're having now, like this week here, we're going from, 30s to 60 degrees. That's not going to happen as you get further into the winter. So at that point, it would make sense to me to have that blanket snow declaration, because you're not going to see a lot of changes going back and forth. So it's just a consideration. I just don't want to commit to something and find out that we cause a problem for our DPW crews. So I'm just expressing my concern.
Just a question for you. So we do have major snowstorms. I think we do. They happen at 7 a.m. in the morning, and we deal with it. Your department deals with it throughout the day. So what is the need for the ban from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m.? Is that to prepare to get the roads ready for people going to work, going to school, or what? Because we do have storms throughout the day. What's the reason why? What's the best reason do you think to have that ban for 4 hours for your department?
But it is preparation, especially in the morning. That's part of the busiest time when people are getting ready to go to work. It takes us a couple hours just to get things ready in terms of getting the roads treated, sanded, and then plowed and cleared. So that's a critical time to have that, availability there. Again, people don't know that there's a snow ban going on when we go to this, warning system. There could be a lot of situations where the cars are just parked out there, and that could be a potential problem.
Right, and is the town ready to have a tow truck operator or two businesses ready to start towing vehicles that have their cars parked during a snow emergency?
We do it now.
We do it now, okay. And they can say, well, I didn't hear it, but it doesn't matter, you're gonna be towed, right?
You're gonna say the same thing if there's a blanket ban between November and April, because they may not be aware of it. They may leave the car there. They're gonna have 90 days worth of mild weather with no storm. The storm, we had to remove cars from Park Street last year when, they waited and waited as long as they possibly could. No one could identify the owner. Tow truck was called to tow them. So it's maybe it won't work. I think it was probably put in place because of that, because the town did not have a good mechanism for communicating that. And I would feel, being in municipal government long enough, I would tell you that as an administrator, if I was simply concerned with the functionality of government and its easiest execution, I would tell you to leave it in place. Because as Robert said, it's simple. Do not park your car overnight from November to April. We don't care what the weather is. Because if the weather does get bad and it comes in at an inconvenient time, we want the roads open and clear. I don't know if that's the best for our community or constituency, which is why I said it requires us as a staff as a team to work closer and communicate better. I think inevitably there'll be somebody that doesn't, know about it, and there'll be a plow route that we'll hear about that there's an issue. But that's the nature of municipal, government. If the board does decide to try it, this year, we'll try it. We'll make sure we record the feedback, the positives, the negatives, and, we may be a year from now saying, go back to, the way we used to do it. We did that for, a reason. Those reasons are still valid. Sorry, Peter, sorry, Corey, we tried it, we don't know.
I'd also like to mention too, those times will include snow removal for the downtown area. Now, we almost have to have a need for an isolated snow ban for just the downtown area. Now it has to be close to a general town snow ban, the area that we need to clear to the snow, which just be isolated in that particular case.
I can see Corey and Peter's concern, but as people that are renting apartments, the people that rent them know what they have for parking. Is that correct? They see when they rent that they can't fit as many cars as they think they need there. So I would think it would be up to them to realize that they need to find a place. And my concern with this changing of it is that we might open up a can of worms where people just say, we don't have to park, we'll just park on the side of the road because there's nothing that's going to happen now because they did away with this. And one of my big concerns is quick icing of the roads when you have cars that will be no longer perhaps, it's hard to get two cars into a spot where there's maybe only room for a car and a half. They may feel more inclined to want to just put their car on the side of the road. And that may just escalate throughout the town if we do go in that direction, that people will start skirting what we hope to attain. And I worry about quick icing because that's something that comes quickly. You get a little bit of rain or sleet, and you may end up having like bumper cars throughout the community in hilly areas or anywhere, because people with black ice, you can't see it. So I have some concern about it, but I certainly can see your point. But that's going to open a can of worms for other people that own rentals here in the community, which we have many of them. I believe half of our residents live in rental units. So it's something that we have to look at, but it's something that we have to be very careful with because, once again, I worry that, you start this and all of a sudden everybody's going to start just taking advantage of it and just parking, where they probably shouldn't be. And then we may have more trouble, but that's just my thought.
Peter?
I'd like to just address a couple points real quick, if I may. And I understand what the DPW is talking about, but the message that we have and the point that we're talking about is the overnight parking ban. The chief said that ends at 6 a.m. 6:01, my alarm goes off. I get out, I move my car back in front of my building. It starts to snow, or as Member Nowak was saying, instant icing. This is a ban that's during the night only. What happens if these situations happen during the day? There's nothing that says I can't park the car during the day unless there is a declared emergency. So I think we're taking the context of the point and stretching it out, because again, we're only talking, and this is the first I had heard that it was only 4 hours, that 6 o'clock in the morning, 6:01, I can put the car in the road and it doesn't matter. So if my car is in the road, I think what's going to happen is the DPW is going to have to sand or salt around it anyway. To avoid everything that's been brought up, we'd have to have a complete parking ban, which doesn't work. To Member Nowak's other point too is it's not the fact that people are knowing that they only have one spot to park. It's the fact that they're not coming to town because they only have parking there, where I can rent an apartment in Pittsfield and I can park in the street unless there's a declared snow emergency. So I think we need to look at the task at hand. I realize it's change, and change is difficult for people, and I don't think there's anything to take advantage of here. I think it's going to open up housing, and as Corey had mentioned, there's a disparity between the buildings that have significant parking and the ones that have extremely limited parking. And I think the point is that to get the better tenant stock in the housings, to maintain our housing stock, is we need to look at this. I hear the points. I know plowing has got to be a nightmare for the DPW. It's a nightmare for us as landlords. However, we have to think that, to the director of the DPW's point, is he wants to be able to sand or salt something like that. Perfect. However, we're talking about a ban in a certain amount of hours. The minute that ban is over, I can park. What happens if that sudden ice comes at 7:30 in the morning? Cars are in the road. So I think we just need to look at the fact that we're banning parking an overnight situation, but then once that time ban is over, anybody can park there anyway. So that becomes an issue anyway, unless the town declares a complete state of emergency and removes the parking. The other thing I would add is landlords can be a little bit proactive and let their tenants know. We could certainly let our tenants know that there's a parking ban that's going to be in place. We all know when there's a snowstorm coming. Other communities do this. I think what the town administrator has proposed is a very simple plan. I mean, Boston, it's odd even, you can only park on certain days of the week on certain sides of the street. I'm not proposing that. I think to try this out, just to be able to remove that component of that, because if we think about it, it only applies during that time, but the rest of the time, the other 20 hours of the day, people can park in the street and therefore inhibit the DPW in their work. Thank you.
I had a comment.
Go ahead, Mr. Bishop.
So I had a couple of things. Is that first off, and I had wrote some notes. So people are already finding places to park for their cars based on our current situation. This, I believe, is just going to take a little bit of the stress out of it for some of these folks and give them a little bit of a break. And I do think that, if there's a snow emergency, well, the DPW is still going to have that window between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. if there's a snow emergency declaration, because people will get their cars off the road and make sure that they're not there. So when it's not snowing out and the weather's halfway decent, there's a little less stress for these folks to have some movement. And, I don't think that everybody's going to run right out and put their additional car in the road. I do think that the people will adjust. And I think that people will learn along the way and how it works. This is not going to, be a month or two and everyone's going to have it down pat. It's going to take a little bit of time. And, at the same time, when it comes to this weather, we can't always predict everything. And I get that. But I do believe that with the technology that we have nowadays, that we know that there's going to be an impending storm coming probably days in advance to be able to get the word out there. But again, my feeling is that this is going to take the stress out of it for some people in regards to hurrying up, getting back outside, finding the place to park, getting a ride back to the house when it's not necessary. So I do think this is a challenge, but I think it's something that we can work out. And just in retrospect, I go back and looking at the 40R stuff that we went through, and everybody has a concern or an issue with something, and until we're willing to go down that road and try something to benefit the people of the town, we just don't know. So I appreciate you listening. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to clarify one thing. The parking ban, I don't believe is a 4-hour thing. The 4 hours is the enforcement aspect. They didn't start ticketing until 4. I actually think it's like 11, 11 to 6 or something.
Midnight to 7.
You can't really start, reason why they don't start till 2 is because you get such at midnight when the clock starts the 2-hour ban. So you can't start ticketing until 2.
Right.
That's why it's 2 o'clock. You couldn't start ticketing at 1 because the car hasn't been there for 2 hours yet.
Right, but in a no parking, in the situation we currently were running, from November 1 till April, whatever, there was an overnight parking ban, which started from whatever to whatever. So if it started at 11 or 12, I mean, you could start ticketing at 12.
No, because the code doesn't start, the order, or the parking ban is from 12 a.m. to 7 a.m.
Right.
So they have to be there longer they have to be there 2 hours within that window to get the ticket.
In order for the officer to issue the citation, they had to use 121.2, because that's the only bylaw that allows them to cite a vehicle parked overnight. The total overnight parking ban, unless a snow emergency was declared, then they would cite under 121.1E. That's the other issue, is there's no way to enforce the overnight parking ban from November to April unless the officer uses 121.2. If the board chooses to go to the snow declaration only, and there's a car sitting out there at 2 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock in the morning, 12 midnight, and there's a declaration that goes into effect, effective 6 p.m. on this date until 6 p.m. 3 days from now, and a car is sitting there within that time frame, midnight, they're cited under 121.1E immediately, because they are parked overnight, or they are parked on the street between the hours that the snow emergency declared. So it actually allows the officer more flexibility to actually ticket an offender, a violator. And that was the information that I said to the chief, I wanted to know how officers were enforcing that, parking ban in a way to figure out what the legal authority was, and they were using 121.2 in order to do it.
I guess I had a different mindset because our restaurants and bars were open to 2 a.m. and we've never had them ticketed or remove their vehicles throughout this ban till 2 a.m. But maybe the rules work with that. So that's why I always thought it was like 2 to 6 or 2 to 7. So there was never any write-up tickets against patrons of our local taverns in the communities which are located up till 2 a.m. when the bars closed. Then after that, the ticketing or warnings would begin. Is what I thought it was. But anyways.
Well, it was more of a statement than a question that, he did mention a 4 hour, he didn't realize it was 4 hours. I didn't either, but
I thought it was 4 hours.
By the book, 121.2, 2-hour parking during certain hours on all streets and parking lots controlled by the town. No driver of any vehicle shall park such vehicle in any street or in any parking lot controlled by the town for a period of time longer than 2 hours between the hours of 12 a.m. and 7 a.m. of any day.
so now,
By the book.
if we go with this scenario, with the declaration of a snow emergency, they would ticket under 121-1E.
Correct. At any time of day.
And I think, the November to April, I know when I was younger, winters were there was a lot more snow. And so I can see changing it up now, and I'd be willing to try it for a year, and, go with the declaration, but like John said, like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock,
Oh, I think,
we would have to make the declaration.
we're gonna get, depending upon how the board chooses, we'll get together, we're gonna brainstorm. I think it all depends on when we know the storm is coming in. If there's gonna be a huge storm predicted overnight from Sunday into Monday, and we know this on a Friday, we can even do some of this from home. It's not, with technology these days, it's not, I can sit at my computer and send an email out to the press, media, we can do Facebook, Haley can do the town webpage from home. It's not, we can certainly come up with good, there'll be bumps in the road, don't get me wrong, but I think we can smooth them out pretty quick. But if we know during the work week that we're gonna get a storm, you know, just because we're putting it out doesn't mean it goes into effect. You know, we can put it out Friday at 4:30 p.m. That says effective Sunday at 3 p.m. Snow emergency is declared for the town of Adams. No on-street parking until Wednesday at 12 noon. And, you know, Tim and his team is pretty good at clearing everything up, depending upon the number of how much snow we get, usually within 6 hours of the end of a storm, give or take. So we'll just put that, and then again, at the end of the day, as with any enforcement mechanism, it comes down to the officers using their discretion, you know, at that point. So we issue the snow emergency for the window of time that we feel we're gonna be under the weather, and then the time that's gonna take DPW to finalize the clearing. And if they need additional time to clear, then, you know, obviously there's gonna be, people are gonna know that, you know, I can't park there because they haven't gotten here yet. And alternatively, if it ends sooner and someone decides to park out there, there's no impact to snow removal operations, I don't think the officer is gonna ticket.
Just a few comments. First of all, I'd like to get sand out of the conversation. We don't use sand. We're not supposed to use sand because of filling up our catch basins. I don't think we use sand anymore, do we? Well, I don't know if we should be doing that.
Need that traction on some storms. Salt and water won't cut it. That doesn't give you the traction that you know.
Well, I don't know. We have to be very careful of that because DEP frowns on that. Yeah. And also, I think the ban was put in effect from 12 to 7 because if it's like 10 o'clock and a storm starts raging, then people get their cars in a proper place, and it goes to 7 because at 7 o'clock our DPW will be on the clock, and they'll be able to react to anything that goes on, even if they're there, you know, during the night to, you know, finish their work if there is a snowstorm. So that's one reason I believe that ban was put in effect for those hours, because it gives people time before they go to bed to be able to get their cars situated and everything put in a proper place when they know there's an impending storm. And that gets the cars off the road so that the DPW can do it at 7 o'clock, and then because DPW is on the clock then also. So, you know, I have mixed feelings about it. You bring up some good points, but I just can't realistically see how other landlords that own rental apartments that have not enough parking for their tenants will, you know, use that. And once again, as I mentioned, we have 50% of our residents in this community are rentals. So we know we have a lot of rental properties out there, and you are right about the number of cars people have and that type of thing. So I'm just going to stop there.
So I'd like to make a recommendation that we do this as a trial basis. The board has prerogative to determine and vote on a parking ban at probably any time within those months anyways. If it doesn't work, we get 2 big storms in December, and it was chaos. So we come in and say, hey, there's a parking ban from January through March, going back to the way we had it. Or we can go back next year if it didn't work that well this year. But I think it's worth, to give it a trial basis, and the town administrator will work with the police chief and the DPW director, the emergency team we have here, to ensure that communications are put out for all of the residents, so they have time to get their vehicles off the street during a impending snow emergency. So I'll make that as a motion, and well, we do this every year. We have the right to make a decision probably any time of the year. So I'll just make really do I have to do anything? We just don't have a ban. It's probably no motion even needed, because. But I'll just make the motion that we, as a trial basis, that the board does not declare a snow emergency for the remainder of this year through April 15th of 2021.
I think you're looking for not declare winter overnight parking ban.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. All right, thank you for correcting me.
Okay. Is that what you were gonna say, too?
Well, I was raising my hand for the snow emergency comment because the DPW director might have to do that.
Yeah, thank you for straightening me out there.
Okay. So I have a motion by John, do I have a second?
Can you just run it by me again?
All right. I'll make a motion, on a temporary, I'll make a motion for this winter season, to not institute a overnight parking ban as been instituted in past years. For this winter season, and the board does have the right, to at any time go back and declare, a parking ban depending on, how the process works, over the next couple of months. And we'll also include input from DPW and from the police if they're finding issues without this parking ban, so I mean, a parking ban is a temporary decision for this year, for the full winter season.
So, it was a motion to remove the overnight parking ban for this winter on a temporary basis, with the board having the authority to review based on feedback from DPW and the police department, and possibly reinstitute it if necessary. Is that?
That's what I said, wasn't it?
Yes.
I'm just kidding.
checking, that's what I heard.
I'm all for the same idea, but there is no parking ban in effect, because we never instituted one yet this year.
Can I make a suggestion?
Okay?
Instruct the town administrator and the police chief to implement the provisions of chapter 121(1)(e), that overnight parking will be banned in accordance with that section upon declaration of snow emergency.
I'll make that a motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
We will
Okay.
keep the board informed of how it goes. If we end up towing a lot of cars, and it doesn't work, and we're getting the complaints that snow's been left on the streets, it's sloppy, if we incur additional overtime costs, because we have to go back and clean things up, we will report that back, to the board. But we will do our best to declare the snow emergency as early as possible, to give people ample notice to get off the street. And we'll use every communication method as possible, and we'll see how it works, and we'll keep fine tuning it, and we'll give, an after action report to the board after the first storm.
Motion, second, discussion.
I'm just going to abstain from the voting. This is something that came to me just now, and as a selectman, my biggest concern is public safety. And I don't know if this is gonna affect public safety by allowing this to go on. As Member Duval mentioned, this is something that's been instituted in this town for a long time. If it's right, it seemed to work over all the years that it's been instituted. But I have people such as Corey and Peter saying that it's going to affect, people coming to this community, which I don't want to happen. But, as a selectman, public safety is my biggest concern, and I'm going to abstain because I just found out about this, and apparently you've had prior discussions with both Corey and Peter, because they said that, and I'm just learning about it now. So I just want to let you know that I'm abstaining for that reason.
I think that we've all just learned about it tonight.
Okay.
The, meeting was with the administrator and the chief, with these two individuals, and it was asked if I could put it on the agenda because the police department is getting called, because it's after November 1st. So all four of us are on the same boat as you,
Yeah.
just for clarification. So I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Any input from legal counsel, or no issue here?
No, I don't have any issue with anything that you do.
Good question? So hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? One abstention. Okay. So the motion passes. I would like to thank, Peter and Corey for your time this evening, and for bringing the matter forward. And we'll see how it works. Okay. Thank you. So we'll, continue our conversation about parking. And the item under new business C is for holiday parking. Each year, the Board of Selectmen has, put forward a, holiday parking, I've lost my word.
Toll parking control for the holiday season.
Thanks. Appreciate that. Did you want to talk about that? It's typically the day after Thanksgiving until, or through January 1st. When parking is waived throughout town. I think that's.
Day after Thanksgiving until January 2nd. The meters are covered up with season's greetings bags, which I believe will need a new round of bags, Mr. Tober, to purchase, because we used those extensively during the early days of the pandemic to allow people to park without control for takeout purposes. So the board, as always, tolls parking as a gift back to the community to encourage downtown shopping, etc.
And Thanksgiving falls on, Thursday, November 26th. As an FYI. Does anyone want to take this up?
I'm kind of curious, we did it the day after Thanksgiving?
I only have 1 year under my belt, and I think it was that day. And I'm just doing that by memory. I didn't look it up.
It doesn't have to do that.
It can be whenever you'd like.
I would think like start the day before Thanksgiving, because, I mean, Thanksgiving's a big family day. Everybody comes up for that big old turkey dinner or whatever it is you eat. And, what the hell's the date of
So Thanksgiving is
Thanksgiving this year?
November 26th.
Thanksgiving is November 26th.
Yes.
So I'll make a motion that the board waive parking fees from November 25th to January 1.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I just have a comment about, I hope that we're going to change, the covering to the meters away from plastic, since we have a ban in this community on plastic bags. So if we can get something like a burlap or something that, instead of, plastic, I think it would be good. And also, if you look at our streets, I've really noticed, I think people in this community have noticed, we have a few new businesses coming in, and, a lot of the storefronts are filling up. So, we got some places to shop, and I hope that you take advantage of the small shops here in Adams and help them out, because they need your help.
Any further discussion on holiday parking? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or an abstention? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. We do have, DPW Director, Mr. Tober here this evening, to just talk a little bit about the scheduled leaf pickup for around town. So if you wanted to talk about that?
So we're going to be doing our leaf cleanups starting this Monday, November 9th, for all the residents out there. This is the leaf pickup for town trees. And the goal of this, to get the trees, all the leaves off the streets, so we can clear our stormwater drains, and we want to get them off of and away from our catch basins, because every year those leaves clog the stormwater catch basins. So that's our goal, is we want to get those off the road, the leaves from the town trees. We're asking town residents to put the leaves into a pile, not a windrow, but a pile in front of their house as close to the road as possible. Because what our crews do, starting this Monday, is they go with two loaders. They have a large loader and a smaller one. They they push the leaves into the larger bucket of the loader, and that loader puts it into a dump truck and hauls it away. So we're asking to put it in a pile in front of your house, as close to the road as possible. We'll be starting in the center of town, I understand, going up to Harding Avenue, and then we'll be going to different areas. We plan to do the whole town within the first week, but we'll be going back. So if you don't have time to get it done this weekend, we will be going again at least one other week, if not a third week, until we get these leaves, because nobody can predict when all those leaves are going to be down. So again, we're starting this Monday, and we will continue until the leaves, when the snow starts.
Any questions for Mr. Tober?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead.
It's happened to me. I think one year we identified the streets. You know, the last week, we're gonna do these streets on this certain day and these streets on this certain day. And I got my leaves out there, procrastinated a little bit. Then we had a snowstorm in November, which froze all the leaves together, and they weren't ever picked up until I called, and the DPW was graciously enough to come up and take care of it. You know, they came back later. My concern is, if we don't set a time frame, you know, we set the time frame, and, because if someone, you go by my street, right, and one day before it all ends, let's say, before the snow flies, and I decide, oh, I'm gonna get all my leaves out there because I got one more day, right, and other people do that. So, you have, you know, let's say you got another day, and you're gonna scour the whole town of Adams to determine if there's anyone that did their leaves the day before. So, I'm just, you know, really it's up to, you know, you're the DPW director, but people will put the leaves out there at the last minute, or if they hear a date, they're gonna get it out just for that day, or if it's a nice day, or, I'm just, you know, if you say 2 weeks or possibly 3 weeks, you know, what is it, you know, for the homeowner to ensure that when they get them out there, the DPW will come and get those leaves. If you're the last one in the town to do it, you're still gonna find them, driving through the community and find the leaves in front of my house, Mr. Ball's a procrastinator, and take care of that.
So the leaf pickup this year is intended to be identical to the way it was done last year, which was from the start date all the way until the end of November. Just put your leaves in front of your house in the mechanism that Robert said, and DPW will get there. If at some point December 1st rolls around, December 2nd, if for some reason DPW hasn't come back, just call, they will come and they will get them. I've been told that in the past, prior to my time here as town administrator, we attempted to do that by precinct or by section, and it was very difficult to do because they found that they were going back to other neighborhoods anyway. This way here, last year, Mr. Cota wanted to try it so that just put your leaves out there and we will deploy through the neighborhood. This actually takes the majority of the highway crew. So we put 4, 5, 6 guys on a crew, and and they try to hit every neighborhood at least once a week. So this is no different than what we did last year. It is my understanding we did not get many complaints last year. Inevitably, just like Halloween, someone's gonna get left behind, a simple phone call with the street address, and DPW will be right out there to get it. So for a start date, it is Monday. For an end date, last day of November. That's
Last day of November.
Yep, I think that's the best way to do it.
Monday, which is November
9th.
the 9th through the 30th November. Anytime during that time period, these can be town trees.
Town trees.
Can be left for the DPW to pick up, and they will be picked up. If not, you can make a phone call, and they will come and take care of them. Yep,
you can also use our online DPW, email, report a public infrastructure, concern email, which is available right on the town webpage, and our DPW admin and Mr. Tober get those. And we'll put it into the work list. Shouldn't be an issue.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
just want to reiterate again, we will be going throughout the whole town, a number of cycles. It's just not one pass. We'll be coming through 2, possibly 3 times. Again, it's at the end of November, but again, it's weather permitting. If we get a foot of snow in here, it's not going to happen.
Correct.
Try to get it done as quickly as we possibly can with it. We have this snow out here, the other day, this continues, and it's going to hamper our operation.
Right. That's understood. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. New business, letter E, special municipal employee designation.
Thank you. I'll speak as to items E and F because they are connected together. We have a real estate matter that involves the town that is current. It is not adversarial. It is a friendly real estate matter, updating some older documents. Our town council, Attorney St. John, has informed me that he has a conflict and cannot handle the matter. So we need to appoint special town counsel to do that. I've engaged Attorney Grandchamp, who has performed the services of special town counsel before. So this is, you'll be asked under item E to designate the special town counsel position as a special municipal employee. You've done that, folks, before for our school committee members, et cetera, in order to have that person comply with the ethic rules applicable to municipal and special municipal employees. And then F is to simply appoint Attorney Grandchamp for that one special real estate matter.
We do need to take these individually. First, designating the position of special town council as a special municipal employee. That is the first item.
So moved.
I have a motion by Rick. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That is unanimous. The second item is to appoint special town counsel, Attorney Jeff Grandcamp.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that?
No, I was just curious, how, will, if we go for a appoint a special town council, what will the pay rate be and how will we determine how much, will be paid to him?
Attorney Grandchamp will provide an engagement letter where he will indicate an hourly rate. He'll give me an estimate of the amount of hours required to handle the matter, and we'll pay for it out of our legal line item. It will not come out of Attorney St. John's salary line. That, and to my understanding, that's been consistent with how Attorney Grandchamp's engaged the town before.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstention? Okay, that is unanimous.
And that real estate matter, once it's finalized and ready to go, the board will be seeing that item.
Letter G, under new business, is a recommendation from the licensing subcommittee. The licensing subcommittee has met twice on the matter with regard to the licensing renewal. Renewal paperwork has been sent out to all the license holders, as well as entertainment, anyone holding a license for renewal. They've received their paperwork. But I will turn it over to Member Blanchard to give an update and a recommendation from the licensing committee.
Okay, I'm just gonna read a memorandum that was included in all your packets from the licensing subcommittee. On October 1 and November 2, the licensing subcommittee met and discussed potential reduction in Section 12 alcohol license fees to address concerns of license holders who were unable to use their licenses for a significant portion of 2020 due to the COVID-19. Many communities across the Commonwealth have instituted a 25 to 50% license fee reduction accordingly to address this concern. After much discussion and consideration, the licensing subcommittee requests a one-time 25% reduction in Section 12 alcohol license fees for the 2021 renewal cycle. So basically, because they were not able to utilize the license in opening, we're looking at just a 25% reduction in the fees for next year. And that's basically only for, could be box, snacking, food, package stores kind of thing. You know, it is strictly just for the box, because package stores were allowed to stay open.
The section 12 alcohol license is for on-premise sales. Where it's 15 is the, right, 15, thank you, yes, would be off-premise, which would be our package store.
Am I on?
You are, Mr. Summer, but wait until I recognize you.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. But thank you for letting me know that you're still there. So, so I do know that we do have some people on the call who, this was probably important to them. But before I turn it over, to anyone who's on the call, does anyone on the board have any questions or discussion on that?
During reading what Rick had just mentioned, you, teetered between 25 and 50%. Why did you go with 25 and not 50? I have a feeling that, you know, these people haven't had any income whatsoever from their establishment, and I think 50% should be what you're looking at. I mean, they have had nothing, for their businesses at all. They've been closed completely up, and, you know, I mean, it is a great gesture, 25%, but I personally think it should be higher. They just have made no income whatsoever. They've been closed now for nearly a year.
Right, we weren't teetering.
Okay,
The statement was that other communities
okay.
have,
On as far as 50?
gone with a 25 to 50% reduction. We pretty much stuck with 25 the whole time. It was about a quarter of the year that they, were forced to close. There are some bars still closed, but that is kind of by choice.
The mandatory shutdown, for a lot of these establishments is March to, just at the end of June, or middle of June is when they were able to start opening if they had food.
Right, if they have food.
Right, and so, and the health department, has been trying to work with all of the establishments to find ways to offer food, and so the other, consideration that we had was, this does affect the receipts that we have budgeted for, and any revenue that we have budgeted for, and having just half our budget, we wanted to also be cognizant of any type of savings that we're giving. So a 25% reduction, according to the town accountant, would be roughly about $6,800 that we would not be collecting in revenue.
On the other hand, Madam Chairman, what have they collected bars that haven't had any food or anything? I mean, you know, they've lost more than $6,800, I'm sure. So, yeah, I understand. I'm not trying to be confrontational, but I just feel that, yeah, I just feel that, you know, giving them 25% is kind of chicken feed for what they've gone through, particularly those bars that don't have food. And a lot of bars that did have food were kind of skirting what should have been done by serving, you know, like a hot dog or potato chips and calling it food, you know, so I don't know, that's just my feeling on it. And as the subcommittee, you make the decisions, and that's the decision you came with.
How many establishments are impacted? Well, what makes up that $6,800 total, is curious.
That is just the alcohol. Fees. And by the way, this would just be the local alcohol license fees. The state is not given a reduction at this time. all alcoholic beverages for, restaurants is $1,150, which is a fee that has not changed since 2008. That would impact
What happened to the audio?
I believe it's 18 establishments.
Okay, so 18 establishments with 25% reduction equals $6,800.
What are they doing?
Roughly. Yep.
Not enough.
Now, you indicated, that the budget has been approved, and whenever, if we do something like this, $6,800 reduction, it's like robbing Peter to pay Paul. Where will that funding be made up in the budget? We have to get it from somewhere.
Right, so it might be savings in some area. It's also why, we had a lot of conversation about not going higher than 25%, because we just weren't sure if we would be able to recover more than $6,800.
Okay, so a question to the town administrator, do you feel confident that you can find $6,800 to replenish the reduction of 25% to these, establishments?
I think it's a reasonable amount to be able to absorb. We're very conservative in terms of how we have estimated for our receipts. Frankly, this is one of the receipts that we like, because as long as the businesses are robust and stable, we can depend on the revenue for it, coming in. We certainly understand, echo the concerns that everyone has had, regarding it, but I think we can probably absorb the $6,800. It's very hard when we're trying to look at receipts, because as with everything else, they're estimates. So for example, if we have a really good year, if the automobile manufacturers come out of their COVID slowdown and the supply chains open back up and the dealerships offer good deals and we have a lot of our residents purchasing cars, then the excise tax receipts will go up and offset it. So if we receive a vaccine that is equitably distributed in early 2021, and say March or April, the restrictions are lifted and we're into phase 4 or no phases and we're back to normal business and people are open, our receipts from food and lodging, will go up. Those receipts will go up. So there's a good chance that it'll be offset. If it was a larger number, I think from the fiscal side, I'd be a little bit more concerned, but I think we can handle $6,800.
So, excuse me, this is Mike from the Halfling House, and I think all restaurants, as well as many other businesses, are really struggling right now, and anything that can help us to stay in business will be beneficial to the town at the end of the day. If we get through this thing, and we're struggling like everyone else, if we get through this thing, we'll be fine. But if we don't and we close, then there's no taxes or revenue going to the town, and there's another, restaurant that bites the dust. So anything helps. So, we're looking at every single penny that we spend right now just to try to stay open. And it's a struggle, as you all well know. So I totally, would hope that this is something that you would consider.
Yeah, I'd like to get 50% if we could. And this is just a budget, where I was going to, it's just a budget related question to ensure that that's our responsibility also. So that was just a budget related question, but I do support the request by the subcommittee.
just keep in mind, it's a very interesting point, but, you know, for example, and I didn't talk to Mary about this, and that's my own fault, prior to tonight, but I'm assuming that revenue that we earn from these businesses paying these license fees goes into our license and permits receipt line item. So, for example, we estimated in fiscal year 2019, revenue in the amount of $82,238. Our actual receipts in fiscal 2019 was $101,304. Our estimated receipts for fiscal year 20 were $85,200. I don't know what the actual numbers were, but we only budgeted for $86,000, so we only went up a few $100s for fiscal 21. So if on the receipt side as well, we also have a little bit more robust building inspector and code enforcement officer who are also out there enforcing those regulations, and there's fees associated with the building permit fees, you know, et cetera. So it's entirely possible, it's not a promise, but it's entirely possible that will wash itself out. It's a risk, of course it's a risk, but again, $6,800, I think what both Mr. Summers, you know, have said, Don left me a voicemail today, you know, indicating what his position was, and Mike's viewpoint on the restaurants are what other folks have said. We'll make it work.
Okay, thank you. Hey, do I get on?
Yes, Don, go ahead.
Okay, all right. First of all, I disagree that there are some bars that chose not to open. Any club or bar that has been closed all this time was closed by legislative action, either by the state or by the town. And it doesn't really make sense to me that we paid a license last year to serve alcoholic beverages, and we haven't been able to open all year long. I think those organizations that did that and were closed, and it's going to most likely be closed for the rest of the year, that you ought to waive the fee for next year's license. You don't have to reimburse us, but by the way, I'm speaking on behalf of the American Legion in Adams. I'm the chairman of the trustees. So you ought to waive the fee for next year because we haven't been able to use the privilege that was granted to us by paying the licensing fee. It doesn't make sense that you would reimburse us 25 or 50%. Some establishments, restaurants, they were closed for liquor licenses, liquor serving for 3 or 4 months. I can understand the 25 or 50% for those. But for clubs like the American Legion, the Turn Hall, not the Turn Hall, what's the one up on Anthony Street? I can't think of the name of it now, it doesn't matter. Yeah, right. Those organizations have been closed. The grill, I believe, has been closed because we don't serve food. So we paid for a license that either the state or the town took away the privileges of our selling the alcoholic licenses, alcoholic beverages. I think it only fair that next year's license is given to us at no fee, and that's it. We'll eat the loss of business that we've had all this year, and it's been tremendous for us. We just about hanging on, but I think that's only fair. So anyway, I suggest you vote a zero fee for the license for this organization for next year. Okay.
Speaking for the Legion.
Okay.
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 Okay, thank you, Don. And it was my understanding from talking to code enforcement, Mr. Blaisdell, that there are currently 3 establishments that are closed without plans proposed for food. One of the clubs that we just mentioned that has been closed has proposed a food plan and is working with code enforcement to reopen. and 2 additional clubs, have been open and will continue to be open for, events. The Legion being one of them that is hosting, breakfast with the Masons. Do I have that correct, Rick?
Yeah, but I think the Masons were doing a takeout breakfast.
Takeout breakfast.
Oh.
Yep. That's true, right. That would leave the Legion closed. So there's 4 that would still remain closed without plans to offer food.
But they had the opportunity. I know Legion has a kitchen, obviously, because they'd be cooking breakfast there.
Yeah.
So they could have opened with a small menu, you know, basically the whole hot dogs. You know, but
So the licensing committee put forward a recommendation, however, it is the board's discretion to, take a decision.
Can I say something else?
Or, different from the recommendation that's been put forward. Yes, Mr. Summer?
Yeah, Mr. Blanchard said that some of the establishments had an opportunity to serve food. If you're not in the business of serving food, you can't serve food. It just doesn't make sense. We were primarily a bar, you know, and you can't serve potato chips and stuff like that and call it food. So it's a nonsense. It just makes sense to be fair. We paid for the liquor license. The government said we couldn't exercise the license. So in fairness, you ought to just give us a license for next year. That's only fair. Okay, that's it.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to say that, I would suggest that the licensing committee, liquor license committee, subcommittee, meet and, you know, talk a little bit about that option for some of the, establishments that, such as the clubs that were mentioned. You know, there is a fairness clause in this world. To me, if you're paying for something that you can't use, there should be some compensation of some type. And I would suggest to the subcommittee, talk to the state and see, I can realize why they're doing it because, you know, it's certainly money like we're worried about, but, I mean, they need to, look at that as well because as, Mr. Summers mentioned, or Mike Summers, you don't allow these places to move on and if we lose them, we lose a lot more in the end than, you know, we lose business, we lose, you know, taxes from that business and so on and so forth. And so it's a tricky situation. I do agree, but I think that, you know, if you're giving somebody has a license and they can't use it, it's really a new issue for them. I mean, what would that do with them? So that's just my thought. That's all I have to say.
The fee that we charge, is that all that money goes back to the town, or is some of that money goes to the state?
It's all the town. It's all the town.
It's all the town. Thank you.
I thought that was good for mascots, so I was like, is there more to it?
the state fees are totally, they're separate.
They're separate.
Right,
They pay those directly to the
They
state.
go directly.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Of which, you know, the state's not waiving any, you know, in other communities, even other Berkshire communities haven't
They're not waiving.
waived any.
So we didn't feel comfortable with that.
Thought it was a nice gesture. Giving back 100% would be awesome. I just don't think it's economically feasible that we can do it.
But we can go back and look at that and bring forward what all of those costs would be.
And I don't know what to do. If I pay for a driver's license, if I can't drive for whatever reason, be it my reason or the state's or whatever, I don't get a refund for that.
And I don't see the correlation there. If you lose your license, you're at fault for what you did. If you lose your license for speeding or whatever may the case be, they're losing their income for nothing that they did, other than purchase a license that you can't use.
If there's a recommendation for the licensing subcommittee to, go back, take a look, and we can do that next week, bring something, forward for the November 18th meeting. Just keep in mind that that might mean that the December 2nd meeting, which is our annual, license renewal, we might have to, vote and issue those licenses on a condition that they pay, because they won't have their payments probably in by the December 2nd meeting, just for timing purposes. Yes, go ahead.
And just so you know, on the, November 18th meeting, I will not be there because I have a work commitment meeting.
Try to carry it forward then. We'll make sure you type up a nice memo for me. But if that is the board's pleasure, we can do that. Okay,
But the request was made, so
okay.
take a look at it.
Okay,
So we'll look at,
make a motion, we table.
okay.
Well, I think this one here, is this a separate one, or does it pertain to the 25% reduction? Is that something that we can approve, or?
I think Member Novak was asking us to take a look at, up to a 50% reduction.
No,
Wanted to look at as
No.
well as 100% reduction for the places that were, closed.
Well, that really wasn't the case. My case was, I'm not going by that. I'm going what, Mr. Summers said about, reimbursement. The 25%, that was made as a recommendation by the subcommittee, and that's what you thought was best for the community. I just want you to go back and look at, people that have paid a yearly fee for a license to serve alcohol, and they can't use it. Should they be, should the next time around, they just get the license because they weren't able to use what they paid for? That's what I would like the subcommittee to think about.
So 100% reduction for the places that have remained closed in 2020 for their.
Well, I don't know if I'm going by 100% reduction. I'm just going by a fairness doctrine. Why should an establishment who's paid a fee to the town of Adams for being able to serve liquor, and the state and the town says that you can't open because of restrictions set forth because of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Okay, we'll take a look.
But, yeah,
So I think we can still vote on this, if you come back, we may say no.
Sure.
And this is a recommendation from the subcommittee to us, that we should do this.
There's a recommendation.
And I'll put it forward as a motion
Okay.
that, within 25%, and that the subcommittee will look at it, so anything in the future could be.
And for clarity, Rick, if you could just indicate that it would be the reduction in the section 12.
Right, I'll make motion that the board approve a 25% reduction in the 2021, section 12 alcohol license fee.
I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed or abstention? Okay. Then the licensing subcommittee will, look at the other recommendations. Thank you very much. That brings us to department reports, and the town administrator is up first.
Thank you. I have a message this evening for our residents from Kelly Rice, our treasurer collector. We were successful in issuing, maybe our residents won't like this, but we were successful in issuing our real estate and personal property bills. They went in the mail Monday, November 2nd. I'd like to thank everybody out there who actually called up and said, with gusto, when am I gonna get my tax bill in the mail? Our taxpayers in town, are incredible, and we appreciate that. Even in the middle of a pandemic, they called up and wanted that tax bill. They went out in the mail November 2nd. They are due December 2nd. Town hall remains closed to the public except by appointment. How can you pay your tax bill? We have 3 methods of doing that. The first one is you may approach town hall. Our drop box, our secure drop box, is right out in front of the building. There is a 24-hour camera on that drop box. It is secure, it is safe, and it is checked multiple times a day, including on the weekend. So you may fold up your payment and put it right in that drop box. Second method, you may certainly mail it in, as you can all the time. And the third is to pay online, and the online fees are being waived, and that cost is being incurred by the town in order to do that through the end of December. So those are our 3 ways of doing that. So please leave your payment, remit stub, and check in an envelope in the drop box by the front door of Town Hall, or you can mail it in or pay those real estate and property taxes online. That's my announcement for Ms. Rice, our treasurer collector. Secondly, 2 very quick personnel updates, and then I just want to get into a little bit about the health pandemic update. We have completed our sergeant's assessment for filling 2 sergeant positions. You'll be hearing more about that in 2 weeks at your next meeting. We have received several applications at this point for the position of permanent police chief. We're reviewing those, and we'll be getting back to the board once we do an initial screen with candidates for you to interview. And lastly, we're in the process of assembling an interview pool for community development director. So we have some staff changes happening here in town. COVID-19, still a lot of conversation about this. Knock on wood, Adams numbers, not unlike the rest of our Berkshire sister counties, are doing really well. We only have presently 1 positive COVID-19 case here in Adams. I would just like to remind everybody, the best tool to keep COVID-19 away is physically distance, wear your mask, and wash your hands frequently. At the end of the day, simply avoid large gatherings and use common sense and limit your indoor time. There has been no reports of any COVID-19 yet that has been present here in the town as a result of using a restaurant or a retail space or anything like that at all. Most of the epidemiology from what we see countywide and statewide, frankly, if not nationwide, has been these large gatherings. So just a general reminder, we're doing really well here in Adams. We're doing really well countywide. Let's please keep that up. And really, that's just to the studious nature of our residents who are abiding by this. That's all I have for this evening.
Okay. Any questions for the town administrator on his report?
How did the Halloween distribution go?
Yes, thank you, Member Duval. We are compiling a list of everyone who donated that we have, particularly our business sector. We're going to publish that list. We don't want to drop anybody off, so we're being meticulous, not unlike our states who are counting every vote. We want to be sure that we include everybody who donated to that. So we'd like to thank everybody now for that. We'll come out with a comprehensive list. Feedback was positive town-wide. My wife and I came up, we had a blast. We rode in the back of a police cruiser while the chief of police and chairman of the board were in the front. So that was got to see the town from the back of the cruiser. But we had a lot of fun doing that. We played Halloween music through the PA. I really have to thank our forest wardens, the members of the alerts, our fire department, our few DPW team members, as well as the members of the police department who showed up on their own time and participated. It was, I get goosebumps now just thinking about it, but I think we had most of our vehicles out and about. We had to actually go back to the police station and bag more candy. Community members were out and about, people were waving. It was a really positive experience for it. We actually received some feedback that people actually said, can you do this again next year, even outside of the pandemic? It was just my experience riding in the back. It was just great to see people waving. And I think it's positive to have those well-marked public safety vehicles owned by the public bringing cheer.
And the ambulance.
Thank you, yes, and Adams Ambulance Service, they showed up. Every public safety, entity in town
And
participated.
the police chief has said that there was, over 74,000 pieces of candy that were donated, and, over 3,000 goodie bags that were distributed, that evening. And they did hit every neighborhood, and, neighborhoods that, maybe the team had gone past, and they weren't outside just yet, had called the police department, and another cruiser or vehicle went back and made sure that no kid was left without candy.
If anyone was listening to our public safety frequencies that evening, our local channel, our local dispatch channel, it was very interesting because, we were still dispatching candy in a very professional, manner, such as, car 42, candy drop, south side Commercial Street, between such and such, block. They did it with as much gusto and professionalism as they would anything else, so, there wasn't one person that didn't have a smile on their face.
Thank you. And my last question is in regards to the Adams Town Common, usually at this time of year, we're looking for Christmas trees, from residents to, donate, but I believe we have a Christmas tree that's gonna be there already?
Yes, we talked about it this morning. I don't know if it's installed yet, but it should be installed probably by the end of the week. It might be up, as of now. Becky Ferguson, our Community Development Department, and, Mr. Wojcik, our, Acting Operations Supervisor, we're gonna go over and check. They're actually trying to figure out, decorations for this year, so more information will come once that tree is, put in place. It'll be about 8 feet tall, I believe, and about 5 feet wide.
Is that, it's gonna be permanent?
It'll be permanent.
Okay.
The estimate from the landscape architect, and the engineering firm is that it may have to be replaced every 15 to 20 years. But this way here, we're not chopping down, good trees for decorative purposes. Will be a permanently planted tree. One change on it, so just a quick update about Town Common is, it's lingering a little longer than we thought, simply because of weather, also mobilization for a contractor to do paving, and then some of the lead time on some of the materials. The location of the gazebo and the location of the Christmas tree had to be swapped, due to the ground condition, where the initial gazebo was supposed to go. It will not be able to withstand the weight of that, so it had to be changed based on the, mill that was there before, what the underground conditions are. So that also was a little bit of a delay to redesign that and run those numbers.
Okay, I do have one more, sorry. I saw the news recently, that Susan B. Anthony, where she was buried, attracted many, tourists, I would say, but voters, and it's a yearly tradition where they put, I voted, like what we received yesterday, when you vote, you get a sticker, or whatever it is. Most of you probably saw that. Years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, and Joe was involved in the conversation too, is that the possibility of, renaming the Adamstown Common to Susan B. Anthony Town Common, or whatever it may be. I think if you do that, it's going to be an attraction that will be, identified on maps and, tourist, destinations, and I think what's been done is fantastic, and the statue and everything, all the work that went into this. I think would be, something for you to look at, and come back to the board if that's, what your thoughts are, and a possible naming of it, if you agree with that, to include Susan B. Anthony, because again, I think it would be, I think it's going to be an attraction that people from far and wide are going to want to go to see as part of their North Berkshire, Massmoka, Clark, whatever it may be. That will be on their list to check out. Thank you.
Rick, anything? Joe?
Yeah, as far as, Halloween, I was wondering, I asked you early on, are you going to put out, something on our website, as you just mentioned, for Adam's Facebook about the people that donated? Because, I didn't want the children in this community to be slighted. They've been slighted enough with this COVID-19. So, I took it on myself to go and, you know, raise a good sum of money to all the businesses. And I'm a man of my word, and I promised those people that they would be recognized. And I want to make sure that happens, because they're deserving of that.
And I'm a man of my word. I promised you I would, and I don't want to slight any business that
Right.
would inadvertently leave off that list.
Okay?
So we had 3 sources of names
Yeah,
that were being collected. We're collecting them now, and once we feel the list is comprehensive, you provided your list,
yeah,
Chairman provided hers. We have the treasurer's office downstairs compiling it. We're gonna give it to Deb to do one final compilation, and then we're gonna publish that, and we're gonna put a press release out and hope that, our folks that were kind enough to donate will get some goodwill publicity out of it.
okay.
But
Thank
we're
you
just
very
taking
much.
our
Yeah.
time in order to be comprehensive with
See, I
it.
didn't want to bring this up because I don't want any kudos for what I did, because I did it from the heart. But when I promise people something, I want to produce it. And, I hadn't seen anything or heard anything once and I emailed the chairman about it, and she didn't get back to me on that situation, so.
Anything else for the town administrator? Move on to the town council report.
Since my last report on October 21st, the following was done. On October 23rd, I presented the town's case at a dangerous dog hearing before the Northern Berkshire District Court. I want to thank Chief Bacon, Animal Control Officer Kim Whittick, and a civilian witness, Mr. Marshnick, testifying at this hearing. The hearing was a combination, a hybrid, if you will, of a in-person hearing at the court, in the courtroom, as well as Mr. Marshnick appeared via Zoom and testified. I learned that the clerk magistrate upheld the board's findings, but I do anticipate an appeal by the dog owner. That appeal would go to a judge of the district court to hear this, and that type of hearing is what's called a de novo hearing, which means that the judge would have to hear the live testimony from any witnesses, not simply handing in police reports of prior incidents. So I'll have to track down the witnesses to the prior incidents that caused the board to take the action. But be it as it may, we'll do what we have to do. I prepared a motion to dismiss an amended complaint for judicial review. I reviewed the anti-liquor alcohol license transfer, contacted the ABCC regarding my findings, and I prepared a memorandum which I gave to you tonight regarding my findings. I've had discussions with staff of the Board of Health and its chair concerning procedural issues regarding some upcoming hearings, and I reviewed and commented on the draft BYOB policy.
Any questions for town council?
I just have one. Is there anything new on the Curtis Fine Paper property, or is that still two different properties?
That's still in the process before the land court. Land court has it, and a lot of it has been placed on hold because of the moratorium as well as the COVID-19. And as I said, I'm waiting for some direction from the court at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else for town council? Thank you very much. We will go to subcommittee and liaison reports. As I had mentioned, the licensing committee did meet on Monday. We did review the annual renewal process. We also talked about the recommendation that came before the board this evening on the Section 12 fees. But as town council also indicated, we are in the process of looking at a BYOB policy and doing a little bit more homework on that before moving anything forward to the full board for possible adoption. That's all I have for committees. John?
I'll take the record of County,
By all means.
we did have a public safety subcommittee meeting on October 29th. going down through the agenda, the police chief search process. Town administrator has indicated that he has a search, committee that's going through the, resumes being received. And as what has taken place in the past is the board, the town administrator will recommend to the board, names, usually it's 3 is what we're looking for, who he believes, meet the, initial qualifications for the position. The board does reserve the right to see all of the resumes, and if we determine that we want to interview, someone or number more than the 3 provided, or 4 could be provided, or whatever it may be, we have the right to do so. The next thing is the sergeant's assessment, job description review. So you've already talked to that in your report. The job description, we went through it. We were discussing, taking another look at it to see if it can be updated. Detective position, the police department is looking to fill a detective position. Officer Wandry has left that position, still with our department. Thankfully, he's an outstanding officer. But we have that open position. We talked about the job description. There really isn't any job description for that detective position. The board, the personnel subcommittee, or the public safety, we have to come up with some type of a job description for it. Well, that's a suggestion, I'm sorry. Reserve and special police officer policy, just reading through policies. In regards to policy, the police department, we do have a policy book that exists, and it's, I'm not sure, Rick, you've seen it, I've seen it, I'm not sure of how much updates have been made over the last many years. So it's outdated. The chief provided us with a contractor who would develop the baseline of the policy for the board, and they also have a fee every year to support any updates, or they also do training, but there's a lot to it. But this was just an initial discussion. It's not saying we're going to do this. The board would have to get more information because there is a cost to it. But we need to get the police department's policy handbook updated, and the police chief and the town administrator provided us with some options of either we do it or we have a contractor do it. That was just things thrown out there, but more discussion will have to be had in regards to that. Interim chief's remaining tasks, just going over what remains. And also we threw around some things which in no means we're going to implement is the assessment of the department. It's some of the departments in our county, 1 or 2, have been they meet a certain policy assessment accreditation. Thank you. I was looking for that word. Accreditation, is that something we want to look into for our department? Again, that'd be a lot of discussion with union and recommendation of the town administrator and the chief. And again, this is just, no decisions being made, just looking at ways to improve our department. So that's all I have.
Okay. May I ask,
Sure.
Member Duval, a question? As far as when we go looking now for a police chief, are we going to have the same people on the review committee? And how is that going to work? Or is there going to be a committee put together and then they'll bring us the 3 finalists?
Because of the COVID-19 situation, which initially had, we did have a committee that was selected, and because of meeting together and things like that, the committee itself, I think, agreed that they would not be part. I think we did too. I think part of it, they would not be part of the process the first time through. The same thing goes for this time through, to get some individuals to volunteer and put the time in and to work together on this with the situation we're in, with the distancing and The town administrator, as with any other position other than normally the chief or the DPW director, is going to work with the chief. And I'm not sure who the other person on your,
The chief himself is reviewing the applications. And just to give you an idea, we've received 20 applications for the position of police chief. Only 5 meet the threshold criteria.
okay,
So he's reviewing them in order to expedite the process as they come in. We're gonna compile all that. The job solicitation is open through the end of November. So as they come in, and his contract ends at the end of December. So as they come in, he's reviewing them. He is essentially your review search committee, and he goes over them with me. And then we'll compile that master list that we have of everyone that meets that threshold criteria, and we will present it to the board, and we will go from there. So you will have the option to interview all of those candidates, like you did last time. You interviewed every candidate we had, which was 5 or 6, I think.
We offered it to 6.
6.
1 dropped out.
So we'll see what that, if that's a manageable number, you may interview them all. If there's 12 good candidates, you'll receive all 12 names, and then I would expect the board to tell me to what their wishes are from there.
And when is the deadline for submittal?
I think it's the 21st, Joe. I think it's the last Monday in November, I think. The chief recommended a 30-day window in order to get word spread out.
So as far then as, I believe there's sergeants, that's gonna be in-house selection also with,
Yes.
okay.
and the last thing we discussed was, we requested this from the chief when he began, was to look at our policy, to look at our schedules of our officers. He discussed with us possible, different type of a scheduling structure, for the officers, that are on duty. One example, 12-hour shifts, in one way, and again, this is just discussion, nothing has been, in concrete, that a way to reduce some of the overtime, that was one of the tools that could be used, is to change the day, for the officers to a 12-hour shift, vice an 8-hour shift. So that would, a possible way to save on the overtime costs, was brought forward to us. So we're continuing to look into that, and other ways too, to bring that overtime cost down.
Thankfully, no.
Trustee committees reported out, okay? Joe, anything on committee?
No, I haven't. There hasn't been much going on. No, I don't have any report.
Okay. Camera is in your direction, so we'll start with you for announcements from good order.
Okay, well, I'd like to echo what, Jay said about COVID-19. It's really rearing its ugly head. As you can see, it's beginning to, encroach immensely in the state of Massachusetts and throughout this country. It's a sneaky virus. If you're not doing what you're supposed to, it's gonna get you. And you can see now that Pittsfield has a number of them, and, with Thanksgiving coming and people getting together, it's an important time now because, you know, if it festers like it has in the past, we're gonna be right back to square zero, and that will be a shame. And I'd just like to echo, I'm at a school now, and, I work as a janitor, and I'll tell you, the kids in that school, they are so good at wearing masks and washing their hands. I wish adults could be as, as careful as these young children are. Once in a while, I forget to wear my mask, and Mr. Joe, where's your mask? So I believe what Jay said. It's really crunch time now for this community and all of northern Berkshire County and the whole state and the whole country. As you can see throughout this country, we had more cases today in this country than we've had, the second most we've ever had in one day. So it's just telling you that, you know, cold weather and flus, that's a lethal combination. So thank you for bringing it up, Jay. That's very important that people continue to have that on their mind.
Well,
That's all I have.
Absolutely, we're doing really well, and, you know, the conversation that we had tonight about the liquor license, we wouldn't normally be having that conversation had it not been for, you know, COVID-19. And on the municipal side, it frustrates us because we're not the ones that are issuing the orders to close our businesses. You know, we could certainly come up with a way to do this, but these are state emergency orders that we must follow. And, you know, our staff has done the best to try to get them to reopen, but, the best way for our businesses to reopen is to get COVID-19 as low as possible. You know, some of us have said on the municipal management side, we're frustrated because Berkshire County is performing, I think, the best, frankly, of all of the counties in the Commonwealth. But it's very difficult to manage a health pandemic region-wise. So I know, you know, criticism of the governor for doing that. I think in our situation, it's just let's comply. Let's use the tools that are given us and keep our eyes on the prize, that if we can keep the numbers low, we will be able to reopen and get back to normal, whatever a new normal may look like as soon as possible. But we just have to remain vigilant. I think every holiday, you know, like Halloween, it was a very difficult decision for us. We labored with that decision. Thanksgiving is going to be difficult for our folks to decide what to do, but just use common sense and keep your eyes on what our prize is for a robust 2021. So thanks, Joe.
Rick, anything for announcements of the order?
No, nothing that hasn't already been said tonight.
I'm good. I just have one announcement, and for any of the residents who have stuck with us as we are gone over 2 hours this evening, if the sound at home is still not the quality that you are looking for it to be for this broadcast, I once again encourage you to call Spectrum's customer service line at 1-833-780-1880. That number again for Spectrum's customer service line is 1-833-780-1880. And please let them know about the sound quality on this channel.
Right, let everybody know, we have done what we have been able to do here on the municipal side. Our partners at NBC TV have done their best. This is not within municipal government's control or our local community television. Let's be very clear about that. This is an issue that the for-profit cable company, Spectrum Cable, our cable provider, rests with them. And the only way to address it is for our residents to call and to plead with them to address the matter, so you have the right to sit at home in the middle of a health pandemic and watch your local government at work. That is why we have local government access. So it is very frustrating for us when we have the tools in place to allow for remote participation and for people to watch their civic process. You know, we're kind of proud that we're still able to, you know, to function. I think we're starting to do it pretty well, which would still be nice to get back to normal, but it's not us. Please understand that. We want you to hear what we have to say. We're here for 2.5 hours doing your business. We want you to hear us. Please call that number and bombard them. And I'm pretty sure our state rep, if he's watching, is sitting at home going, yes, please. We know Rep. Barrett's fights with the cable company, and this situation, it rests with them. So thank you. I've been silent on the matter, and it's frustrating for us.
So the people that need to hear this probably just didn't hear what you said.
It is my understanding that Northern Berkshire Community Television is also putting the phone number on the screen during the broadcast.
I was going to suggest that either on the screen, if you call this number if you cannot hear this program, or if you have a sign up or whatever in front of you that said, hey, if you hear us, call this number and complain, like on Facebook, whatever.
I was stopped yesterday at the polls by 2 residents who asked me to communicate that again, and I did reach out to Peter earlier today, and we'll try to have a plan going forward to continue.
And that's the beginning of the meeting, because a lot of people, they start to listen, they can't hear them, they shut it off.
I meant to do it, and I wrote it at the bottom of my agenda instead of the top of my agenda, but Peter gave me that information up front for me to announce. I did.
No, that's, I mean, at the beginning of the meeting on the screen,
Yes,
if I can turn off right away within 2 minutes, if they can't hear us, they get frustrated. From what I,
think that was done tonight. Yes, that was done.
all right, thank you.
So thank you, Peter,
Thanks, Peter.
for getting that up.
And I was gonna say while you're at it, you can complain about the internet service we're getting from them, and the cable service, and, but anyway, we need competition.
We digress. So if there's nothing else for announcements in good order, I just want to announce that at this time, it does not appear that we will have a meeting or workshop next week. Wednesday is the holiday for Veterans Day is observed. So we will be having a meeting on November 18th. That does allow the licensing committee for us to schedule something at some point next week to bring forward on the meeting. So unless something else comes up between now and Friday, I don't see us meeting next week as a full board. So with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So entertaining.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.